Okay, folks, we're going to give this a shot. Okay, my phone's fully charged. Good. Well, we're going to try this until I'm done with it or we lose power. So, if this feed ends abruptly, it was against my wishes. Alright, so here we are in T34 Landia. And these are the final two T3485s. And yesterday, I think it was yesterday, maybe it was the day before, I don't remember. It's all one big blur. We painted these, and they need to be weathered. So that's what we're going to do next. And let's get something that we're going to... Yeah, it's difficult looking for glasses when you don't have glasses on. What? Start feeling around. I bet one of these will do just fine. Yeah. Yep, that'll be right. Okay, so we're going to start first of all with US Field Drab. No surprises here. It's the same way I do it every time. And that pretty much goes for all the time. If I don't say, okay, folks, good night, we're going to do another, and I get stopped abruptly, I was not planning on that. Let's go ahead and change the chat while we're at it. And we're just going to start on the lower half. So if you end up putting too much down, well, it's on the part that's the dirtiest. And for the most part, I've been really happy with how these have turned out. Especially since, to a certain degree, these tanks have been a bit of a rescue. They were missing a lot of parts, and I had to manufacture some of them, and it went pretty well. And I picked up a couple new skills along the way. We're gonna make this one dirtier. This one went through a mud puddle or something. That way they don't all look exactly the same. Yeah, I kind of like how that looks. And the secret to dry brushing, in my opinion, is Don't use one color. Like you dry brush it, and like it doesn't look as good as the stuff in the other pictures. Yeah, well, they didn't just dry brush one color. They used multiple colors on there to build it up, give it depth. I don't say this very often, but man, the house is cold. And that's on purpose. That's by design in case you lose power. I don't know if we're going to lose power or not, but I suspect it's probably all signs point towards it should be milder than the last one that came through here. Even though this is a much nastier thing for the folks that got front row tickets to it on the beach. For us, it's significantly farther away than the other one. Now, the only thing I wish is I had a game convention to go to tomorrow. That's what happened to the last one. And hopefully we don't have much stuff to pick up out of the yard. It was had quite a few limbs. Nothing major, but quite a few limbs. And no, it's not a long vacation for me. We supposedly have a work day tomorrow. We'll see how that pans out. But that storm hasn't even made landfall yet. It's getting close to, but it still hasn't made landfall. I think we need a little bit more of this. Still muddy in the back, just not as muddy in the front. And neither one of these two are going to have the headlights on them. We can call it battle damage. All right, I think that's quite enough. Get on here with the Iraqi sand. I'm not even going to rinse this. So, you know how you guys are always saying that, not you guys, but just in general, how it's difficult to get yellow to paint well, get yellow to cover? Well, I need to do yellow on one of the markings on one of these D34s. I think it's a divisional symbol. There's a tank corps. Now, they don't use divisions at this point. The Russians started with tank corps and they started switching them out like around just before the German invasion, and they were in halfway in between switching to tank divisions, and then they switched back. I guess it would be a brigade or tank corps, whatever it is, but it's yellow. It's a yellow triangle with a yellow circle in the middle of it. Almost looks like some Harry Potter thing. Not that I would know that, but that's what it looks like. and it's in yellow. So normally what I would do is I'd mix up brown and then build it up and eventually have the yellow. I found a color that works really well as the base color of it. And it's actually really thick too. And it's this color right here, this medium flesh tone. This medium flesh tone worked great as the first layer on the yellow. And it covered really well. So this is Vallejo 8060. Medium flesh tone. I was really happy with that. Figured I'd share that with you. I know some of you guys are always struggling with that. I hear about it all the time. Might not even be any of my viewers. Alright, now this one that has a lot of this mud on here, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to not go heavy on this sand on the bottom section. I'm going to try actually to avoid that. And that way it looks like maybe this mud's a little bit more fresh. I don't know, just whoa, that's in the wrong place. Easily fixed, but still kind of surprised me. I was watching a video last night. Somebody had asked me about the numbering systems that the Soviets used, and yeah, it's basically all over the place. But I watched a video that a guy put on YouTube about it and paint schemes and stuff like that. And one of the things I found really interesting about it is that he said that the base color of the Soviet tank, this 4BO green, as it got older, it got darker. And I thought that was really strange. Because normally it's the other way around. You put a fresh coat of paint on something, it's as dark as it's ever going to be. And then as it wears, it fades in the sunlight, etc. But apparently that paint, according to this guy, I don't know, maybe he's full of shit. I take people at their word. I assume that people aren't a freaking liar. Why would I assume that he's a liar, you know? And, you know, according to this guy, yeah, as the colors darkened, as the colors were older, they darkened. Kind of strange. Rather odd. You know, I was thinking today, I wonder what percentage of the folks, I'm sure there's some variables in there, but what percentage of the folks actually stay even though they're forced to say, yeah, you got to abandon this area. How many people say, screw you, Popa, Popo, Popa, screw you, Popo, I'm staying. 20%, 25%, I don't know. Hey, Freds, what's happening, man? Okay, so now that we've got that color on there, let's go ahead and get the Nuln oil, and we're going to black line this thing. Make it pop out. Poppity pop. What are you working on today, Fred? What's on the agenda? And I'll say it again because you're here. If somehow my feed cancels abruptly, it's because we lost power. So. And why did we lose power? We didn't pay our bill? No, we got a big storm brewing in the Gulf of Mexico about to make landfall. But we're pretty far away from it. We're over 200 miles away from it. But it's a big storm. Sliding away on the early war Belgians. Decided to paint another 30 for the tournament in 3 weeks. So, what scale are you doing those in? I think it's for bolt action, right? But 28 mil maybe? There's one store near me that actually has a lot of 28 millimeter World War II. I was surprised how much they had. Like, a lot. Let's see. Kind of windy. Bolt action 28 mil. Not here. I mean, it is in my state, but we're a long way. We got a really long penis-shaped state, and it's over there somewhere else. Fortunately, I say this all the time, and I'm not superstitious at all. Just from my experience in living in this area my entire life, we live in fortunately, one of the areas that suffers the least amount of damage to hurricanes. Now, you can still always have a tree that can fall down, that can hit your roof or something like that, but no, not going to have a lot of fatalities here. You're not going to have a lot of flooding. But that's why when you complain, when we have to take like almost a 2 hour drive to get to a beach, now you know the advantages of it. You don't have the beach that comes to you. Because even if there's no wind, those, people's stuff is just going to get destroyed. What gets me is there's people that live near the beach and never go to the beach. Like, why live there then? I mean, I get it. You get some kind of a breeze, which we don't really have any breeze. Probably the worst thing about around here, but You know, the trajectory changes constantly, and when that thing looked like it was headed straight here and got up to 180 miles an hour, which is unheard of. Yeah, that would be bad. But we're still not going to have that crazy flooding. I mean, we're in one of the highest parts of Florida. We're like a whole 100 feet over sea level. Mostly going to use chain of command as a rule set. Tournament is bolt action, though. Yeah. Do you find that chain of command has a lot of loopholes in it? I've watched several of the videos that they've done. And, I mean, there's a lot that I like about it. You know, if it was forbidden for me to play what I play here, and I had to play something, it would definitely be chain of command. I'm not going to play rapid fire. I'm not going to play, you know, bolt action. Flames of War. You know, Flames of War, I was surprised that Flames of War is supposedly a 1-to-1 scale game, meaning one tank represents one tank. It sure doesn't feel that way when you're playing it. It feels like you're playing, you know, a 1-to-5 scale game. Mr. Marcos, what's happening, man? I got an email from someone that I've got him 3D printing some stuff for me, and he says he's putting the finishing touches on a couple things, and he's looking to possibly mail them out Friday or Saturday. So hopefully this time next week we'll do an unboxing. And like I said, I got it from a bunch of different manufacturers. I think 4 different manufacturers. Well, it's actually technically it's one manufacturer, the guy who's 3D printing them, but the examples or the designs are from 4 different designers. If that makes any sense. And I actually did that on purpose. I did that on purpose so I could see, you know, one of the designers that looks to be the best one of all of them doesn't have a huge repertoire of stuff. So, we'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to the material being pretty resolute. If it's anything like this other 3D printing stuff, that his material is incredible. But I highly recommend anyone who has the inclination to do what I'm doing right now. And that is go ahead and put the lines in this stuff. Because if you put one that I did the lines in and one that I didn't side by side, the one that I didn't looks like trash is probably an extreme statement. It doesn't look as good. Your preferred World War II set is Fistful of Toes 3, 1-to-1 scale, but can't really run it in 28. Kind of don't enjoy the skirmish side of gaming, but since it went well last time I played in the tournament, kind of grew on me. Well, I didn't start off doing skirmish. I started off doing 1-to-5 scale, and I just don't like how much of a sideshow the infantry end up turning into be. Obviously, I'm very interested in what happens to the infantry. That's why they're all named. You know, all my figures have names on them, so you know it's personal when so and so gets killed. the next check at 8. Although they've been running some of them like every hour. And I know several people who are that in that area, and they're like, we're staying. I'm like, I'd leave. You know, if you don't get hurt, what are you there for? You know, I can't stand lightning, so I certainly wouldn't do well in an atmosphere where, you know, if my roof is going to blow off. Actually, you know, I'm not worried about the roof blowing off. I'm worried about something falling in my roof and on my roof and pinning me down. Or people leaving something out there and it starts flying around. I saw so many, I watched a fair amount of live videos today of people where the storm is exactly going towards. And there's just cars just left there. You know, it's like, well, that might be the last time your car's running. And I'm not saying, you know, you have an opportunity of saving something that's relatively expensive. Like cars are significantly more expensive than they were 5 years ago, and hard to get. You know, they're not the availability. Like I'd be protecting that shit. That's like a huge hassle. You can say, oh, it doesn't matter, it's insured. Okay, how long is it going to take you to get your money back? Because you're going to be one of millions that are going to be on hold. And that's assuming they pay you, because, you know, insurance is a big fan of not paying for stuff. But I don't want to be down there. Risk your life, be terrified, and then when it's over, you got to deal with, you know, people. People being uncivilized to each other. But to kind of put it into perspective, the last time, other than this very last one that came a couple weeks ago, that we had a, man, this thing's getting close moment here, was my daughter wasn't even born yet. So it would have been when they had that crisscross in 2004. So getting one every 20 years that you're worried about isn't too bad. And it didn't cause any damage where we're at, you know. Said here, you got to keep the trees off of you. You can't be under a tree or something like that. They'll just. Your brother and his family haven't even recovered from Helene. This could be worse. For you guys? Honestly, I lost track of the Helene thing because what I wasn't expecting to do is to lose cell phone service. So, you know, we lost power at 10:15 that night when it was coming through. And the next day was the day I was supposed to go to the convention, supposed to go to Huracan. And so I was in bed trying to fall asleep. I remember getting the update for 11 o'clock at night, 11 p.m. on my cell phone. And that's it. I woke up in the morning at like 5 a.m. or something like that and couldn't get a signal at all. So it apparently had wiped out the cell tower. Now that I was not expecting, just basically be blind. So, you know, I didn't know what happened to the storm other than, you know, it was going away. And I didn't find out about all that flooding and stuff until I was already in Orlando. So I got about a 6 hours late start, which wasn't a big deal, you know. I wasn't running anything. So this con I actually left late and came back early. So, and I felt like I didn't miss anything. St. Pete. You have a brother in St. Pete? I thought your family was in Virginia. Yeah, we went. So um, Sunday. Sunday, I was having lunch with my mom, and the daughter calls and says, "Hey, they're asking us to evacuate." She's in St. Pete in a dorm, and they're asking us to evacuate at noon. We got to be out by noon tomorrow, and we're like, "Okay, it's like 3 in the afternoon. Go ahead and drive now." And she was worried about the weather. Like it wasn't the weather from the storm, just other weather that she has. And I'm like, let's just go get her. So we brought her and her roommate here, and she's with us. So we don't have to worry about that. We put her car in a parking garage at a hospital. So if she had stayed with us last storm and would have parked her car outside, the limbs would have taken out her car. I don't think fatally. I think the car would still run, but it'd have a broken window or worse. So even if she wanted to stay, which we wouldn't have wanted her to stay, she couldn't stay at the dorm. They literally evacuate everybody. And she's up on, I don't know, the 6th floor or something like that. The building will be fine, but yeah, 20 feet of storm surge. Yeah, that's a problem. That's you're besieged. So we drove down. That's why I didn't have a second session on Sunday. See, there's always a reason. So we're like, let's go, because it's either that or do it after work on Monday. And there was enough traffic. I don't think we hit anybody evacuating traffic. We hit a lot of the weekend people. People trying to mini max their weekend. We didn't get back till almost 11. That's one thing less we don't have to worry about. So I went down there, and then I drove her in her car back. But she was planning on coming home this weekend anyways. She hadn't been back for a while. The black lining you're doing even shows at a distance. Looks good. It looks it looks slightly, and I do mean this, slightly cartoonish, but I like that. That's, my figures look slightly cartoonish. Very, ever so slightly. Okay? I don't like the people that, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that because they do a good job. There's a couple of modelers that are incredible. They make better, and there's more than two. It's just two that I can think of. Night Shift and somebody else. They're both Eastern European, and they're incredible. Their tanks look better than real tanks, but I don't think they look good on a gaming table because you can't see them at a distance. They blend too well. That's the problem that I have with doing the stuff in the desert. In real life you would have, dust, and the dust would settle in the crevices, and the crevices would end up being a lighter color than the actual vehicle, and that doesn't work. That's counterintuitive. So I find myself still having the black lining anyways, and I like how it looks. It may not be somebody's cup of tea. I've said it with the tires. If you're going to paint tires realistically and they have a pattern, right, and you're going to put mud on them, the mud would be in the crevices, not on the top. But it's counterintuitive if you do that. It looks weird to have a dark hidey hole that's a lighter color than the part that's not hiding, So it's it's an artistic license, and it's our artistic style that I prefer. Hey, you do you. I'm not forcing anybody to do anything a certain way. At the end of the day, you're the one that needs to be happy with it. Because if you're not happy, you're not going to produce any more stuff. Okay? And I didn't do that with like this one. This T34 doesn't have that. And I put them next to each other and it's like, it looks like there's something missing. So, we're going to blackline those as well. Most of my vehicles are not blacklined, including that Panzer IV you like. I like that Panzer IV too. So we're going to go back and blackline it as well. And I don't know, it's more like a black wash because it's not super heavy. It's actually, I wish it was kind of heavier, but the fact that it's this, it allows me not to, if I want to make something darker, I can go over it again instead of like being, you're stuck with whatever you have. It's kind of like, if you use a paint pen instead of painting, writing with a paintbrush. When you're writing with a paintbrush, you can adjust the thickness of the line. So, if this is not as dark, the wash, you can adjust how dark you want it. If it's, super dark, that's what you get. So if you want to do something in between, you can't do that with that particular product. That's a problem I'm having with Belgian vehicles and weathering. They are beige, light greenish. When I weather, it blends together so well and just looks like a really shoddy paint job at a distance. Yeah. Yeah, so it was a problem with the Africa Core vehicle. I only have one Africa Core vehicle painted. But I decided I'm going to paint all mine on a gray base and then weather them up. And I didn't do black lining on this either. No, I don't mind going back and fixing some of these things up, bringing them up even more. I was looking at this A13. The A13 doesn't have black lining on it. Well, we'll fix that. We'll fix you. It'll look even better when I'm done with it then. This doesn't either. Yeah, but that's how my Africa Core vehicles are going to look. They're going to look like they're gray with, they just run through the dust. Be free, Because I don't like them being a similar color to the British. They don't stand out. Yeah, this thing has no black lining at all. Yeah. We'll get to you. Who's this? Elegant? We got one of these coming up too. We're 3D printing one of these. Because this thing's nice, but man, it's pretty delicate. I hope that other guy's stuff is a lot thicker. So. A13 is actually a vehicle I didn't like a long time ago, and I grew to like them because their road wheels look like almost like tables that somebody grabbed from Costco or something. Put them on there. Yeah, I just want to make these T-34s as interesting as my German tanks, and I'm pretty happy with them. Are you doing 72nd or close scale? I assume you're talking to Fred. He's doing 28s. Because you know what I'm doing. Marcus, you and me are the ones that doing this scale in America. Hallelujah. Let me go grab a refreshment. Be right back. Like I said earlier, if this feed ends abruptly, well, I lost power. Dang, I thought we had a third. No, just you and me, pal. It's okay. It's all right. I could do 28s, except that, they didn't have it when I started. And I'd have an even more condensed looking battlefield. Okay, I think we're about done with this guy right here. But anyways, what I was trying to get to that question that I asked on the news groups the other day about what infantry used for U.S. and the Philippines. I don't want to use the combat miniatures for them because I want to save them for Marines. And I'm not saying I don't ever want to do Marines. I just don't like a lot of the typical Tarawa type stuff that they're involved in. Although with the very small niche thing that I'm doing, I could do a little snapshot and not have to do something where they're, landing at the. I don't want to do something where they're landing on a beach. It just doesn't appeal to me at all. It seems very static. Okay, let's do this one. This is actually one of all the things that I do. This is probably the most relaxing. Well, that makes it sound like some of the stuff I do is stressful. Um, it's very relaxing to do this black lining. It's because it's very forgiving and not really making all that many mistakes to begin with. And it's one of the things that I said that I actually feel like I'm enjoying looking at the details that these models have by pulling my contacts out. I don't know that I'm painting better. I probably am, but um, when I was painting with 2020 vision, corrected to 2020 vision, I wasn't painting bad. I just wasn't like looking at all these details that this sculptor did. So I'm enjoying their handiwork a lot more. I don't know if that makes any sense, but the experience is more enjoyable. I'm enjoying more of the little details and stuff that they have. Sixth Western Front, early war as well. Belgians, French, and Germans built a nice starter collection. Early war French, Belgian, German, Greek, Italian. The so on that comment, I see what you see that the armor isn't so overpowering, but I feel like the early war armor, the infantry, doesn't have as many tools to knock it out. Because if you're an infantry squad, it doesn't really matter whether somebody is firing a 37 millimeter gun at you and you have no anti-tank weapons. It's still going to cause a tremendous amount of casualties. There's nothing you can do about it. You know, a hand grenade is not any more effective against, you know, infantry units. They don't all have anti-tank rifles or Panzerfaust or anything. Well, it's not true. They don't have like anti-tank weapons normally with them. So they'll have hand grenades. A hand grenade can't hurt a tank, basically. You know, can't really do anything. So if you play later in the war, at least you have a chance for them to have, you know, bazookas or Panzerfaust or something like. Well, Panzerfaust straighten anything out. You get within that range, you put a hit. It's almost. I don't know how this game handles it, but it's pretty much a guaranteed kill, unless you're going to hit like a road wheel or something like that. You hit the hull with a turret with a Panzerfaust, it's toast, and it's a catastrophic end. So, yeah, I do like the early war stuff, but I got a problem with those Panzer threes and fours without that little ammo basket behind the turret. They look weird. They look really, really weird. So I'm not saying I'm never going to do French, but that's the problem with the Germans. Now the Panzer twos I'm okay with, but I don't like I don't like the Panzer threes without the turret in the back, and none of them have them. I got some Czech 38s and stuff like that, but so I've never really gamed. I've played squad leader and stuff like that, early war scenarios, but I've never gamed with miniatures that I painted before, say, April of '41, because you know you do North Africa, and then you run into Barbarossa. And I'm not a big fan of the late war stuff. I've never played with T-34-85s ever. You know, so this is new to me. I'm not like a 1944, 1945 junkie. I just happen to have these vehicles. I think your favorite time frame's 41, 42. It is for me too. Long term is to run Hanut in the 1-to-1 scale with tanks. But excuse me, I don't know what that is. I assume it's a battle in Belgium or France. Are you Belgian? Well, as long as you don't do Danes, because Danes were only around for 6 hours. And early war miniatures actually makes Danes, and they look really cool. Those helmets look, you know, goofy as hell, but, you know, sometimes goofy as hell stuff's okay, you know. Gives them individual stuff, but, you know, 6 hours? I'm not building figures just to use them for 6 hours. That's a little bit... that's a bit much. If you're painting Danes, then you better have a Polish army already, you know? And I'm talking about a 1939 Polish, because they were around for 3 weeks. I mean, the Poles were around as long as the French were. You know, actively anyways. I mean, I guess you could do France and... You could do French troops in Norway and do, you know, get away with another couple of weeks or something like that, but... But 6 hours? You know... 6 hours just doesn't cut it. It doesn't grab my interest. You know, it's not like I'm not gonna play. Oh, it was only 6 hours. I'm not playing with no fucking Danes. No, Danes are fine. Just like I'm not gonna put that much effort into like something that only lasted 6 hours. Hanut is the second largest tank battle in history after Prokhorovka. Really? Well, they say now that the largest battle is actually not Prokhorovka. They say that the largest battle is Dubno. But if you ask anybody what the largest tank battle is, they're going to say it's Prokhorovka. they'll say, Kursk, which Prokhorovka is only a small part of. It's a fairly large part, but it's, and Kursk is definitely bigger, but Dubno's even bigger than Kursk. But a lot of the Soviet tanks showed up or broke down on the way there. I mean, the Soviets had 10,000 tanks or something absurd. I mean, the Soviets had the largest tank force in the Second World War, and within 3 weeks, it was basically eliminated. You know, from Sweden. Hanut. Never heard of it. Hanut sounds like a battle that the Mongols fought in. Look out for the Battle of Hanut. That's what it looks like. That's what it sounds like. It's probably not pronounced Hanut. It's probably Hanut or something. So all those vehicles, 1,300 tanks, I assume they were French tanks? I know the Belgians had, what did the Belgians have, a T-13 or something like that? 6-ton type tank things, or I think that's, I think that's what they are. Something like that. Like the T-26. Battle of Hanut. Starting to make landfall. Oh, let's see what the update is. It'd gone down to 120 miles an hour. Still 120. Cone's even flatter. I mean, but the yellow is all over Florida. I mean, the whole part of Florida is orange. Yeah, I'm in the orange section. I bet there's people on the road. I bet there's people on the road down in that area on the cam. Florida 511. I bet there's crazy bad, and at night, like, man, you can't see anything that's going on. Okay, let's show me where the cameras are. I'm used to doing this on a computer. Let's do desktop site. Desktop site. There we go. Info. Crap, I don't know how to do this. This doesn't look the same. There's a bar here where you can select these things. Let's look at legend. Okay, here it is. So we want to put all of the traffic cameras on. Okay. So this thing is landing. NOAA hurricane. Looks like it's going to make landfall near Bradenton. Damn near Bradenton. So it's going to make landfall up in this area here. Let's see if there's a traffic camera near there that's on. Okay, well, this is Indian Beach here. Okay, well, that one's no longer working. I just there's no way if I lived up in this area, there's no way I'd stay. There's no way I'd stay. Absolutely not. I'd be freaking terrified. Oh, here's a live video. Can I make this bigger? Here's an intersection. They still have power with that a BMW? That BMW is going to be a has-been soon. I know it's just a friggin' car, but last storm we got like, I heard we got like 50-mile-an-hour gust, and I was fucking scared. You know, we don't have trees that close to the house, but still, I'm like, what if a tree falls down and it hits the roof and I'm pinned down in it? I'm like, I don't like that shit, man. It's Hanau in Belgium. Mm. Not named after Hannibal's brother, huh? Or is it his dad? See how easily I forget. You don't do you don't do one period of gaming for a little while, for a couple of years. Yeah, it's been literally 2 years since I don't do ancients anymore. Or I stopped doing ancients 2 years ago. I may do them at some point, but I'm no hurry to return to that. You guys don't want to see me painting, all that stuff. You guys don't miss Mitch's feet that much. Little pistol port on the side of this thing. Like a pistol plug. One thing I hadn't realized is I'd heard that good things about these AK third generation paints, and that's what that set is for the counter scheme. And those supposedly are more friendly to painting with a paintbrush, which these that I use now are not paintbrush friendly at all. They're way too watery. I make them work and somehow with what I need them to do, but I don't like. If I was a paintbrush painter only, I would have been really disappointed with those paints. But because I'm airbrushing in the main color to save time, I really like them because I don't have to thin the paints. Because every time you thin the paint, you add a variable of wastage. You're going to waste paint by doing that. You're going to put them in some other container and not be able to get all of it out. And the wastage is a problem not because I'm frugal, but because you can't just go to the store and get these AK paints. I'll have a mail order them. You know, they're difficult, so it that's just kind of a pain in the butt running out of supplies and stuff. So, but I do like them. But I do like them for airbrushing more than any of the other ones for airbrushing because of that. But these third generation supposedly are thicker, so we'll see. We'll test them out when I get something I need to do a counter scheme on. I have a feeling there's something coming on its way. I personally love the way the counter scheme looks. And honestly, what's turned out the best on these T-34s is all the fake parts I had to make. So all these hatches are all they're one original. I didn't use the original here. They're all fake hatches made of green stuff, and they look really. I'm really impressed with it. You guys wouldn't know if I didn't tell you. You guys wouldn't know. This picture I have here with the tank commander. Oh, I'm supposed to paint a white stripe on this bastard. Okay, let's do that. Where's this picture with the tank commander on it? It was here a second ago. Let's close everything. Should be on the gallery. It's not a download. Oh, okay. It was super zoomed in. This guy right here. That's a fake hatch. That's a hatch made of green stuff out of a mold. And I'm really surprised how good the facial detail is on these plastic figures. That's incredible. And I want to paint some of the Airfix Desert Rats and just see what I can make them happen. I really like the style they're done in. So Tony, I noticed that PSC took down the Ultracast minis from their site. Do they still have them? I did like the Marines as well. I really like that guy's sculpting style. And after somebody said it was the Zan miniatures, XAN, which are from Spain, I'm like, yeah, I recognize his style. And they ripped those miniatures a new one on 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 Plastic Soldier Review. It was like borderline fucking rude. Like they think that the Atlantic ones are better, and Atlantic is trash. Atlantic is the style that those figures are done in. Those Marines, I love them, and they're all different. I mean, they're not all different, but they give. I mean, yeah, they give you three of some, but some guys are the squad leaders are all individual. I really like them. My only concern with them would be if they're so soft and they have flash, and I have to cut the flash off. I do not enjoy doing that. I do not enjoy doing that at all. But as far as the plastic figures being durable, I'm good with them. You know, I've got these tank commanders are pretty decent. I mean, the sculpting on them is certainly good enough. You know, yeah. So they got a couple different sculptors doing their stuff. If you look at the guy who's their figures that are made by these Marines are totally different than any of them. The Ultracast ones, and I thought maybe they make them in white metal as well, but they don't seem to. They don't seem to on their site. There's the late U.S. infantry is done by a different sculptor. They look okay. They look a little bit realistic, like underfed, but they look okay. But I really like those Marines. I really like those Marines a lot to use as U.S. infantry. Which honestly, U.S. Infantry Pacific has kind of a limited usefulness of them. I know why they make Marines and nobody really makes those because you don't think, and there's this perception that the Marines did all the fighting in the Pacific on the ground fighting. The German Afrika Korps and the Tommies that they make for the desert, I don't like them at all. I have a really hard time with a lot of Tommies that people make. It's like their helmets just are sitting on top of their heads, like they're balancing like saucers. It just doesn't look right. Rarely do any of them look better than the ones from Airfix. I think the AB ones are all right. But so many Tommies have just look weird. They just look really, really weird. I just don't like that. They're very roundy. They're almost like FAA style, and I really don't like FAA at all. And I'm sorry if you're an FAA fan. I'm not. My friend that used to do this stuff with me at the same time, he didn't like combat but liked FAA, and I was totally the opposite. I did not like FAA at all. And I have some of their figures, but I think I'm gonna lop their heads off and put other heads on them. They still are weird and stumpy foot. They all have like a size 3 shoe, you know. But it's hard to find desert rats that look right. And it's the helmet. It's weird. I don't know why they have such a trouble doing such a classic looking helmet. I mean, there's nothing weird about, that style of thing. I'm gonna put these next to each other so you guys can see what the difference is. If you haven't really don't understand why I'm making a big deal out of it, it is. It kind of surprised me because this looks perfectly fine. And then you do this and you're like, yeah, this looks like crap. Comparatively. And I don't know that I don't know that I am a terrible picture taker. And maybe because I'm really patient when it comes to this, I'm impatient about taking pictures. Like, it shouldn't take 17 tries to take a picture. You can kind of see it here, but it's It's actually more noticeable than that. It's really noticeable at a distance. You know, it's all about contrast. All about contrast. Yeah, this thing's supposed to have a white stripe across the top of it, which I'm not afraid of doing. And to prove you that I'm not, and to prove to you that I'm not afraid of doing it, I'm going to do it right now. Yeah, it was the 171, wasn't it? I took a photo of it. I took a screenshot of it. Yeah, this guy right here. And it's straight across the back, on the back. Kind of straight across the back. It's actually off the side a little bit. It's really off to the side on the front. It's like they don't want to go over this hatch here. That's what I should have done before I weathered it, but I'm not scared of retrofitting anything. Let's go and put that on there, because every time I put a stripe across the top or anything across the top, I end up being really happy with how it turns out. Whee! Okay, so let's close this up. Airfix did make great North Africa sets. I think they painted up well. I just don't like that their socks are too elastic. They're like way up and, they're like, they stay up way too well. And the poses that they have for the German infantry that has the helmets look kind of weird. The guys with the soft caps look better. The Afrika Korps with soft caps look really good. Really, really good in that set. So we'll probably paint some of those up and see what we can do with them. They're a little undersized, but hey, maroon. And I got some of those U.S. Marines from Airfix that I could use for. I'm not ready to jump in the Pacific just yet, because next thing you know, I got to order palm trees, and what we're gonna do it's gonna do it right. I just wanted to build that little building, and so we're gonna do the same thing that we do all the time. Let's get some water. Oh yes, we're gonna be using this. We're going to be sketching the heck out of this. Let's put some black down. This that I'm about to do this is the kind of stuff I like to do the most. The stuff people are scared of doing. Oh, it's too hard. We got to mask it and airbrush it. Fuck that. I was made for this stuff. Look, the reality of it is, if I screw it up, and I've screwed it up before, it's easy to fix. So why worry about it? There's no reason to worry about it. But the sketching thing, that's huge. And I learned that from doing heraldry. You gotta lay everything out. You don't want to have this beautiful eagle in one side, like maybe half of it's an eagle, half of it's something else. You want the eagle centered over this. And then you got it perfectly, but you didn't center it. You gotta lay everything out first. Tried those district miniature decals there. In fact, entire decal. Ooh, I'm sorry. Are they thin at least? Somebody else I have does ones that are all a single decal. The ones from Alaran, but they're really thin. Alaran are really thin, so I'll buy them again. And Alaran's got Belgian vehicles. Alaran does Belgian and French and. Man, you gotta love the French vehicles with hearts on them and stuff like that. Like, what's not to like about this little stubby little French tank with a heart? An overworked commander. Captain Le Merde. Okay. So let's blow this thing up. Let's lay this thing down. So the stripe on the front of the hull doesn't go over this. And I've seen several of them and it doesn't. So we're going to use, we don't make sure we don't have too much water. We need some pigment to go along with the water. We're going to start with this. All right. And since it's not going to go over this, it's going to be right up here beside it. I'm not going to have it go over part of this either, because that would just look weird. And I'm going to drop that line about right there. I'm going to have to re-weather it. No big deal, you know? So let's go ahead and fill that in. I don't have to fill it in exactly. I just kind of want to put the gist of where it is. I'll have it go up against that hatch, and it'll go over this small portion of this as well. So that goes like that. Drop that to the bottom. I love doing this kind of shit. Okay, so we got that. We got that right where we want it on the front. Okay, and it's wider at the top. So it's thin here for whatever reason. They didn't want part of it to go over that hatch. Okay, and I've seen other versions of it, and they do the same thing there. Now, the one across the back, see if I can put this in a way that, the one that's across the back, you would think would be centered on this access port for the engine, but it's not. Which makes me think it's centered on this turret, which makes me think, is the turret and the access hatch not centered? And if they aren't, it's pretty hard to tell if that's the case. So how does it go across the engine compartment? It doesn't go over that. It doesn't go over that vehicle. It doesn't go over the. It's over this a little bit, and then it doesn't quite go over here. So it's almost like it goes from here to halfway across this latch. So if I draw that completely down, yep, it goes right on that little stretch there. And drop this one all the way down and goes through the middle of this grating, kind of. It sounded kind of breezy. It's going to be something like that. It doesn't quite go through the middle. And when you go over that, see the two boobs are a little different there. So we'll just, wow, it's way off quite a bit. Because it doesn't go over this compartment other than just a little bit, but if I do that, it's way off to the side. So, well, we have to go straight across it. And it goes over that, and it's centered on the gun. All right, so let's go back to this other side, work it. I'm probably gonna have to do my own spin on it, which suits me just fine. I'm used to doing that anyways. A little bit of it shows on either side of the gun, so we're going to go like this, and we're going to go like this, which means it's going to go here, all the way there, all the way there. I won't go have it go over the top of this hatch, but I will go over this one if it goes over part of it. And does it go over the back of it? Does not. Oh, and I never wrote 171A back here. I guess I should do that. It just goes over the top like that. Yeah, so the front, it's kind of offset, which looks like somebody made a mistake. Okay, but I've got it offset like that as well, like I made a mistake. And now what we're going to do is we're going to get a brush that's bigger than this one. Okay, so we can be finished today. And I don't think it needs to be much bigger, but this one does nicely. It was a pain at first discovering, but they work well if you're careful. Very soft and floppy though. You have to roll it out sometimes. Would you buy them again? That's the main thing. Would you buy them again? I would not buy Petting House again, ever. If somebody gave them to me, I'm not going to do them. You just got to break that whole, just paint them all green. Let God sort them out. You can do that. And then nobody will want to play the Russians because they're boring. Same thing with the Americans. And I'm not going to paint it over this track. They painted this stripe and then they put the track over it. White stripe on here so they don't get sturmovic'd. I try to do things right the first time, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. I forget. If I ever need more decals, I would definitely see if they have what I'm looking for. You know whose decals I love? Microscale. Microscale, all the decals I've gotten go on. Oh, actually, the decals that come in the kits are really good too. But Microscale are incredible. They are the best ones. But they don't make a lot of stuff. And I actually found out that you get all those damn Russian red stars have a hammer and sickle in them, which is post-war. Found out I'll just paint over them. So these red decals actually have a hammer and sickle on them. Not anymore. Actually, don't really have a problem with how they look. They just didn't use them. Just like there's many Soviet vehicles, including some T-34-85s, that had white stars on them. You know, a little white star. It just doesn't look right to me, so I'm not going to build those. All right, let's see how we're doing. Yeah, it looks weird that it's only half as thick here. I could just say fucking paint over half of that hatch and it probably would look better. But I'm actually okay with it that way. I'm gonna take a little bathroom break. I'll be right back. Five people. Welcome, welcome. Okay. Did I forget anything else on here? It'd be nice to just be able to knock it out, you know? No, well, we got the lettering on the back. We can do that. There's no stripe on the back. Just the lettering. All right, so let's fill this in with lighter colored paint. So we don't need a turret right this second. And I'm just going to go over everything. We'll get a black line anyways. This one will look dramatically different with the black lining. And dramatically different looking meaning better. The only thing I don't like on the vehicles, I personally don't like chipping. Chipping didn't exist 20 years ago. Nobody was doing it, or 30 years ago when I was doing 1/35th scale stuff. There was no chipping. Now it seems like everybody's doing it. I don't really like how it's hard to pull off. It's hard for a lot of people to pull it off. A few people can pull it off. It looks really good, but I'd rather do some other kind of techniques. Let's get this to the same level this is here. The roofage. And if it looks a little rough, a little bit, well, it's hand painted. Hand painted by a drunk. I don't mean me. I mean the guy's 170 seconds the real size. Okay, that's good enough for that. Let's add more regular white. Add a little bit more liquid for flow. Might be too watery. Yes. Yeah, let's add more substance to it. Still a little too watery. It's take too long to dry, really, is what the issue is. Not bad. And the same thing up here. So after we're done with these, we can do maybe some 1942 T34s, or maybe build up the the T26s I have. I've got, I think, 4 head of T26s. They're all model kits by, shit, I don't even remember who they're from. Skiff, maybe? Something like that. Skiff. I think that's who they're from. And they're not bad models, but man, they're super finicky. Gotta go for the night. Okay. See you next time, man. I hope to be on here tomorrow. If I am, well, then things went pretty well. Let's hope the strength dissipates fast. Because it's coming slightly closer to us as it keeps moving inland, but it's going to be dropping speed and weakening it. So hopefully, I'm not gonna blame on anything. You know, if we lose power, we lose power. There's some people are gonna lose a lot more in power. What does the front of this thing look like? The front of that housing. Can't really tell whether it's painted or not. It might be. Let's just paint it for good measure. Just the top. Let's see how we did. Is the stripe on the body not as wide as the one on the turret? Yeah, it's not as wide as the one on the turret. The one on the turret's wider. Okay. So that's got the right look, and it's even narrower here at the front. Okay, that's. It doesn't go underneath the barrel, does it? Does not. Okay. I'm not going to paint the number behind there. I'm probably going to make a little patch of something, like a little roll or something, and put it back there. Because the back of that turret is very rough hewn. It's like almost like a bad white metal casting on that one. So if I go and do something like this now, let's see if this improves it. It actually gonna look. It looks kind of trashy because it's got doesn't have the any weathering on it on the white section. Yeah, let's cover that up. Okay, looks weird right now because it doesn't have any weathering. But we need that to dry a little bit, okay? Because we don't want to put black line it. But we don't want to weather, pull it off. And we don't want to black line. We can black line it right after we weather it. So we're going to take this other, vehicle that does not have the black lining on it, and we're going to go ahead and black line it. And by the time we're done with that one, we should be able to get to this. Okay, let's move Comrade Commander. You can just move over to here to this, that vehicle. All right. That's going to give me 8 T-34-85s. I think I got enough. Well, the only reason I got this many is that's how many were available. And it did have some of this dark wash on these grates, but didn't have it in these other places. Yeah, normally it'd be like, I just wash the whole thing in black. Well, that doesn't really, that's not the same thing. Because I don't want certain parts of the tank to be any darker. Just makes a huge difference. It's subtle. It is very subtle. It's one of those things. It's if you don't notice it, it's not a big deal. But when you notice it, you can't unnotice it. And yeah, this is time consuming, but you only have to do it once, hopefully. Black coffee and yawning. That's the story of my life. Let's see if there's another update. They've been doing it like every hour instead of every three. There we go. Yep, they have one at 9. 115. Already dropped 5 miles an hour. 15. It's moving 15 miles an hour. That's pretty. That's about as fast as it's gotten. So that's good. The faster it goes, the yeah. It looks like it's gonna make landfall. Sarasota, Bradenton. Oh, this is the cone still from 8. There's just an update here at 9. Yeah. Yeah, hopefully one of those waves doesn't come in and knock out our power. But if it does, we're in a lot better shape than a lot of other folks. So kind of hard to complain about that. But there were some people around here that said at like 2 o'clock this afternoon, there's a tree that fell and knocked out a bunch of people's power. So I'm like, yeah, you're not expecting that before the storm comes because it wasn't even windy at that point. I don't know that it's windy out there now, but or even gusty. And I'll say it again: if somehow my feed gets disrupted, like cuts all of a sudden, well, it's because we lost power. So it's either that or don't do a feed at all, so it doesn't get disconnected. We got lots of Soviet vehicles still to do. I got 3 Su-76s that have been built for a long time. Actually, I think they're I think they're painted. They just need to be weathered and blacklined or something like that. Might be the right time to do that. Okay, this is all good. Going to the back side here. That's all good. That's all good. I think this is I think this one's good. Now let's do the turret. Now this is done with a different color green. This was not done with the AK green, the MiG green. Sorry, the 3BO. This is with the one for the Russian tanks from Vallejo. And it's more of a less yellow in it. Are we still on? Yeah, I guess so. We get those 3D printed vehicles, we're going to do the easy shit first. You guys listened to my feed the other day. I think it was Saturday night, or maybe it was Sunday morning. Where I actually found a hobby store in a flea market, and they actually had 1/72 scale kits. Quite a few of them, actually. Just the pricing on them wasn't right. I'm not paying $20 for a tank. I mean, if I needed one, sure. I don't need one. So, if you were selling them for 10, it's different. But 20, man, that looks so much better. Alright, we can close this now. Because what we gotta do next is, what comes up next is I gotta weather this. I'm gonna go check on one thing. Okay. 5 folks watching paint dry. Welcome. All right, this should be dry enough to weather. So we're going to come in with the mud color and then the other one. And then we'll black line this. And we're going to black line the stuff over the white first because that's what's going to be the most noticeable. Man, it's freaking cold in here. We're specifically keeping it. It's pretty breezy out there. I opened the doors. Pretty breezy. All it takes is one thing misbehaving and bam, no electricity. Trying to find a how-to on how you paint tanks on your playlist. Oh, I don't have one. I mean, other than doing this live. The problem with doing that is that when you make a video about how to do something, you kind of have this expectation of how many people are going to see the video. And whatever that expectation is, if it doesn't meet it, you end up getting disappointed. And you're like, well, why did I do this? So the way I get around it is, I'm willing to show you guys how to do everything. I just don't make me make a special video to do that because it creates a lot of editing. I got to film and edit it, which means I got to watch the thing several times again. It's not that I don't want people copying it, but I just have my own way of doing it. I'm happy with it, But when you do a how-to video, especially if it's one that takes a long time to do, you have this expectation of how it's going to be, what it's going to be. Like, I don't take suggestions like, hey, make a video on whatever, because then, all right, I did not what I wanted to do, what somebody else wanted me to do, and then not as many people watched it as I was hoping, so I'm kind of disappointed. So don't take that as I don't want to help people out thing. No, I don't want to get discouraged. Because if I get discouraged, I'll go do something else and then anybody wins. So I love going off on tangents and maybe showing you something that you got a question on. I have no problem with that, but I don't want to make specific videos that are catered to a certain person. Because the other thing I discovered is it's never good enough. No matter what you do, it's never good enough. Hey, do a video about these armies fighting this army. So you do that, and then like, oh well, why don't you do this one? Why don't you do this one? I'm like, I'm doing this for therapy, not to create more issues. So let's fade that a little bit. I think that's going to have the intended look on it. We won't know till we put the black on it, and in a little bit of this Iraqi sand. So, I did do a video on how I seal my miniatures, and then I don't do it that way anymore. Because that was back when, before Rust-Oleum ended up buying Model Master. I was perfectly happy painting things with the way I was doing them with Model Master. And they discontinued all their lines, so I went away from doing it that way. And I haven't made another video. I like doing unboxings, but I don't like doing how-to videos because, like I said, I have this expectation of like, okay, this is what people want, and then not enough people watch it. So I just kind of do whatever it is, and if it works for what you guys are doing, cool. If it doesn't, well, I'm sorry. Same thing with I stopped playing DBA. One of the big reasons I stopped playing DBA is I was doing a lot of stuff for a lot of people, and all they had to do was show up, and they live in the same fucking town the convention is, and they wouldn't do it. And I'm like, I'm not doing other things for doing this thing for other people, and they're not reciprocating. So I'm like, fuck it, I'll go do something else. Okay, let's do the whole here. See, right now I'm going, it's not looking as good as I wanted it to look. But I also know, I have enough experience that don't sell yourself short. Follow through, trust the process. Trust the process. I'm bad at updating my blog for the same kind of reason. Yeah, I had a blog, okay? And even if you guys don't ever comment on my videos after they're out, I can tell how many people at least clicked. So I can tell that, how many people are live out there. I can't tell how many people look at my WordPress site. I just stopped doing it. And I don't like to write. I love doing this. I don't mind at all talking about stuff or, how do you paint this? And I'll go and pull reference books and we can talk about it at length. I have no problem but doing any of that stuff. But writing shit, it's not that I'm not a good writer. It's just I don't get any joy out of writing. I get zero joy out of it, okay? I get joy out of this. I get joy out of looking at our information and finding out new stuff. But actually writing stuff, one thing that's really annoying for me, and I hate to sound like I'm old because I really never think that I'm old, but I'm just old enough that I never took typing in college or high school or anything. So I can't look at the screen and type. I got to look at the keys. Doesn't mean I'm hunting for where they are. I know where they all are, but I've got to look at them and type. So what ends up happening is I throw things up on the screen and then I have to go back and proofread my shit again because I'm a spelling Nazi. Which by the way is the only good Nazi to be, a spelling Nazi. All the other kinds are terrible. So I'm like torturing myself writing this stuff, Yeah, I use Facebook for that. I put all my pictures on Facebook, so if something ever happens to my stuff, at least I have a record of it. Really, Facebook I use for my hobby. It's what it's for, so. A lot of people hate it, but I think it's really good for that. Put pictures, you don't have to get some hosting site. Because now hosting sites want to pay money. I'm like, I'm not paying you shit. Sorry. that's too many. I'm not going to find value in that. The thing is I don't know why people do how to paint tanks. I would do it as a service, not that I want to convert anybody. I have no. If you're perfectly happy doing things the way you do them, by all means do them. I don't. I'm not interested in converting anybody. I'm not on a crusade. And likewise, I don't really want to be converted. I had one guy, we went back and forth a couple times. He's like, hey, do you ever do 28 millimeter? No, I don't do it. It takes too long to paint. Oh, well, you really should because you could do a really good job. I said, I don't do them because it would take me 12 hours a freaking figure and I don't have that much life left in me yet, to start over. Well, you should give it a try. I said, you should drop the fucking subject. I don't ask people, why don't you do 20 millimeter? I do what I do and that's what I do. I'm not here to convert people, but if you want to get in an argument with me, you've come to the wrong person because I ain't interested. If I wanted to argue with people, I would have been a lawyer, and I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't need any more lawyers. So I pretty much leave people alone. If you have any questions, by all means, I'm more than happy to answer them for you. But I'm not interested in converting anybody to, my way of thinking or anything. I just assume all you guys are a lost cause. I don't get anything out of it. Don't need to. Doesn't matter, I'm not on a crusade. Unfortunately, many people are. All kinds of different crusades. And to me, it just makes it sound like, you couldn't afford to go to you wanted to go to law school, but couldn't afford to. But that's the problem with those how-to videos, is then you have this expectation of, all right, I'm not doing what I want, I'm doing what the public wants. I should get a bigger response. And sometimes you don't. I subscribe to several people whose, I think what they do for a living is how to do this better in YouTube. You know, these how-to things. And I mean, every 2 days, I probably have them all blocked now. Every 2 days, they have a new video. And none of them are bad ideas. I mean, these are pro-level people. But I'm a painter, and I'm doing this for therapeutic reasons. I'm not, interested in how to get 1,000 more viewers. The only reason I want to get more viewers would be so, I may be solving somebody's problem. They might have a problem with something, and it might be something that I'm really good at. And if they just watch my video, they'd be like, man, that's kind of cool. But I don't want to sabotage my own purpose for this, which is to, not be an alcoholic. This keeps me from being an alcoholic. I only do Coke. So, and it's kind of a pitfall. I enjoy doing videos, but sometimes my mouth goes faster than my brain. Meaning, I mean to say one thing and I actually say something else, and it's just kind of annoying to do that because there's a lot of salesy and liars in life, and I'm not one of them. I'm more of an asshole than the other two things. I don't, I don't make shit up, and I don't like people that make stuff up. So. There's some great people on there that do how to paint tanks. One of them is that I got some ideas from, I believe is Sonic Sledgehammer, is what his name is. Because when I hadn't painted tanks in 20 years. So, the methods that were viable back then, there's all kinds of new stuff. And it's not like I didn't know how to do it. I just didn't want to paint 20 of them and not be happy with them before I got one that I was happy with, and I had to go convert them all, right? Or repaint them. So I watched several people doing videos and, and just see where they were coming from, and kind of took some of their ideas that I would have either not encountered, or it would have taken me many tries of trial and error to get the look I was happy with. So in other words, you watch a video, see what the end result is, and there might be something you really like about it, and then you go, oh well, I would have never thought about it doing it that way because I just don't think that way. There's like one of the things that a lot of guys do is they do a brown wash. They paint one color and then they give it a brown wash. It gives some extra different colors on there. This particular person who's but I still do things a little differently. One of the things I like to do is I like to dry brush the colors on, so they still leave some black, because that way I get like a free black wash out of it, so to speak. Some of the other guys don't do it, but I wouldn't have done the brown. I wouldn't have done. I wouldn't have taken the base color and lightened it up by adding a sand type color to it. I would have just done white, and mine would have looked chalky. So it's nice to see what other people do, How hard can we say? It's my time. If I'm going to do something for someone else's benefit, kind of need a thumbs up at least. Exactly. You don't need to suck my dick, but, don't be an asshole, Like some people like to take other people's ideas and then, say, oh, well, you didn't do this right. Well, then you fucking make a video, I love seeing other people's stuff that I like better than my own. Because I go, to me, I'm experienced enough and confident enough in my abilities that I know how to get there. So it's empowering for me. And I'm like, all right, well, I need to turn my game up to 15, Other people may not like that, but I do. But, I'm empowered by that kind of stuff. But you got to find what you're happy with. I don't want to do chipping. oh, your stuff doesn't look good, doesn't have chipping. I actually never had somebody say that, but I don't want to do chipping. I don't like how it, you know. I'm sure I do other things that the chipping people don't do, you know. So it's just your style. I mean, do you really want everybody to paint exactly the same way? You know, lots of people like that dipping. I'm not a dipper. You know, if other people do those paints when they came on there, what are those paints that came on the quick whatever, the things that just came out a couple years ago. You know, the quick whatever the hell they're called, and everybody jumped on the bandwagon and started making their own. They're not for me. They're you know, that would be like going back in time. You know, it's a little too basic for what I want to do out of it. Quick shade, that's what it is. Yeah, I don't need to be quick shading. But if quick shade keeps people that are new to the hobby from getting frustrated and put out some stuff that's pretty decent, they serve a purpose. They're just not my thing, you know. And I generally don't put negative things on. There's lots of stuff in the world I don't like. I mean, I could make you a list, but we'd be here a while. But I don't need to comment and discourage somebody, because this hobby could be the difference between somebody like turning into an active shooter. To use an extreme example. I'm not saying myself. I'm just saying that this is therapeutic, or it should be. So why poo-poo somebody else's therapy? As long as you're happy with the results, and honestly, if you care to, as long as you are doing better, improving on it. Some people may not care to improve. I like to think that I'm doing a better job every time I do it, or at least quicker or more confident in it or whatever. As long as I'm improving within my own skill, I'm happy. Or at least maybe not make things worse, you know? But some people may not care that. Some people may want to just, hey, I want to have a lot of tanks on the battlefield, and I don't care if they look, you know, poor. Okay, well, that's your mission statement. Ooh, to use a term I hate. I hate that term, mission statement. But and there's lots of people that get on there and say negative stuff about you, and people put up with it. Like I know one guy in particular. Now he is a bit of a put his foot in his mouth kind of guy. But he has on his Facebook page, he puts stuff up, and he doesn't ever. He always has 12 to 14 people that just naysay and poo-poo every single thing he says, and he puts up with it. I'd unfriend their fucking ass. You don't have to be Facebook friends with somebody if they're going to be a dick every time you turn around. I don't know. I wouldn't put up with that shit. I've actually blocked some people that he's friends with that say notorious things. I want to make sure that I never see any of their responses. A couple of the guys, I hope the storm fell right on their head. They are some bad people. Reason I ask is because even though I have 20 plus vehicles done over the years, kind of don't enjoy the process. I'm never happy with the results. I can describe it to you. I don't mind describing it to you. Yeah, if I do step by step, I can replicate the results pretty consistently. But it'd be really slow. I have to stop, and I want to get things done. So life is too short to deal with difficult people, especially if you have to deal with difficult people when you're being paid. And welcome, Pat, by the way. And there's nothing you can do about it. You're always going to have to deal with situations you don't like to at work, and you can't avoid them. So I try to avoid them when I'm not at work, because I'm not getting paid for that. So, especially online, I think it's easier to be nice online, because if you're nasty online, you have to defend yourself. All of a sudden, you're like on trial. Like, I'm not interested in that. Like I said, you know, I didn't want to go to law school. I'd make a terrible lawyer. Like, sorry, dude, I thought you did it, and I already made a noose for you so that the judge can hang you. Yeah, I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be a good lawyer. So I don't need money so much to compromise my values. Yeah, but somebody put up with that. Some people put up with stuff like that. So, and I really wholeheartedly do like Facebook. It's great for the hobby. But if you go to my page and start some shit, I'll block your ass. I don't give a fuck. I don't care if you're related to me. Fuck you. I don't do that to other people. I don't go to somebody's house like, hey, he's got a nice Porsche. Let me take a big shit on his doorstep. Like, you don't do that. That's just bad form. Yeah, definitely not in the hobby life. This is all positive, you know? This is all positive stuff. Should have taken a before picture of this. So my process. I prime in black. Why do you prime black? Because in the mid 90s, I got a wild hair up my ass and I started priming black and I like it. And I'm not going to go back. And I don't care if other people prime in different colors. Anyway, so I prime black. Then, and this was before the advent of the airbrush for me. Okay, so I'm going to explain how I used to do things. And the airbrush just speeds things along. Doesn't really, you don't need an airbrush to do it this way. Prime the whole thing black. Take whatever, say you're doing Russian tanks. All right, we're going to use these tanks as Russian tanks. See, I love talking about this stuff. I just don't want to write it down. You know, because I'm wondering, is anybody really listening to me? And it's a lot of work. Like here, if you guys don't listen to me, well, I'm just talking, you know. So prime the whole thing black. Then take a color like this one. This is the new, I believe this is the new Russian color, which is 894. It used to be called Russian green, but it's the same code. It's slightly different. It's Vallejo 894. Whatever Russian green you want to use, this color. Take it and then dry brush the entire tank. This is how I do it. You can do it a different way if you want. So black overall, dry brush this in green. Okay, what I use now is I airbrush it lightly, leaving some. If I leave places that have black in it, no problem. The black's got to get everywhere. You got to be. That takes a long time. Okay, so dry brush this so that you have this color all over it. Okay. Then I used to take Agrax Earthshade. Don't have that anymore. That I got this from, I think it's Sledgehammer. He probably doesn't even know, but I'm good. Hey, I'll give people credit if I remember who the hell they are that I got it from. And I used to use Agrax Earthshade, but it got too expensive and they changed their formula. But that's a whole other discussion. So now I use Army Painter Strong Tone and give it a brown wash. So now you've got this color with a brown wash and some black in the really dark areas, right? Wait for that to dry, because this takes quite a bit of time to dry, maybe 2-3 hours, something like that. Then you go back over with whatever same color you did, okay? So this one, dry brush over lightly, you know, so that you don't go over every single thing. But, you know, you've got some differences of color. So you've got some that you got some variations of color in there. And then, this is what I would have not known. Take this color and use your lightener, which one of the guys uses. I never would have occurred to me. Because I normally use white to lighten things up, except for a couple different colors, mainly reds and stuff like that. We're not going to paint a tank red, hopefully. Dark sand. Add a little bit of dark sand to this, dry brush over that. Add a little bit more of this to that, dry brush over that. You're done. Okay? Then weather, and the colors that I use for weathering are the ones that are based in the stand. So the stand consists of 3 colors: chocolate brown, this U.S. field drab, and the Iraqi sand. So it's basically chocolate brown with these 2 colors on top. So I dry brush these 2 so that when you put it on the stand, the colors it has on the weathering is like the terrain it comes in. Okay, so it makes sense. It ties it all together. And the only thing I added after that is the black lining. I do the black lining afterwards to make the things pop. That's it. It's really pretty simple. It's really pretty quick. The thing that takes the longest is painting the whole damn thing black. And you really need an airbrush for that because otherwise, this stuff is amazing because it behaves almost like enamel thinned black. So it gets everywhere. The problem is when you're doing a big surface that's smooth, as you apply it, you end up like rubbing it off at the same time. It's thin. You need it so the airbrush just applies it better. But you could hand paint it and then just like I hand paint this on figures and it goes every. It's wonderful stuff. You just have to touch it back up, and I don't like touching things up. I like to do it right the first time. Did a couple T34s with Mr. Hobby Russian Tank Green. It's okay, but I kind of like a more avocado tinted color Russian green. What would you recommend? Take your green and lighten it up with this dark sand. Dark sand works great for everything. I use it for Panzer Gray. I use it for, it pretty much works with anything. It wouldn't work if the color you're painting is lighter than this. Then that system doesn't work. And that's how all these are done. And the black lining just forces you, it forces shadows where you want them to appear. And it's not really black lining because it's just known oil. So it's watered down, but it just adds some different variations in here. So that's kind of my own version of, what's the thing that they like to call modulation. That's it. And if at some point if you can pick things out with your base color with the light sand on there and make it stand out more, it's really pretty simple. It's easy to replicate. It's non-toxic, so I'm not using these bad enamel smells, Yeah, that black lining at the end, and black lining is probably a bad example because this is almost like a black line washing. Because it is kind of a wash. And I can make this stuff myself, but they're always telling you got to delegate things. Well, here's something you could delegate. Because then I make my own. Where am I going to put it in? It's expensive, but you don't go through very much of it. You go through more of the strong tone. A lot more of that. But the thing that most people have, and I encountered this as well, trouble with is dry brushing. And the problem that people have with dry brushing is a lot of people hear that you need to do this and they get this idea that it's going to take X amount of time or X amount of levels. And dry brushing that just you dry brush one color and you move on, you're never going to be happy with. It needs to have more depth. At least 2, maybe even 3. So, by the time I'm done, I've got a base color. I've got everything black. I got a base color. I've got a wash on top of that base color. I got the base color again. I've lightened the base color 2 or 3 times, and then did weathering on top of it with 2 different. And none of it takes very long. There's ways to do this method that take even longer, and I'm really not looking for ways to make my really slow process be even slower because I do want to get things on the tabletop. So there's some masters out there that do a lot of stuff with the little oil dots, and I'm like, okay, I want the vehicles to look a similar look to my figures. So in other words, you don't want your figures to look cartoony and your vehicles look more realistic than a realistic vehicle. They both kind of have to be in tune. I mean, if you're going to do, so if you end up doing like the oil dots and you end up doing like the chipping, I think, well, your figures need to have mud stains on their knees and stuff like that. Like you got to bring those up there as well. So, I mean, you could do whatever you want. I'm just telling you how, what I'm thinking of, So I'm really pretty happy with how these turn out, and completely non-toxic, 0 smell, very forgiving, So let's just keep bringing this up. And you don't have to follow somebody's method exactly. There's some things that people did, like, oh, I do that. Like, I'm not doing chipping. I don't like how it looks. Even when it's done well, it doesn't look right. To my eye, to use a Britishism. And some people are like, whoa, you need to do this with enamels. No, I don't. Because with enamels, now I got to spray the whole damn thing with this clear coat. That the only purpose for it is to get the thing to go in the right direction. I'm like, I'll just be careful and just do it this way. I don't want to use enamels. Enamels are a pain in the butt, and they can reactivate things. That's like a hidden gotcha. We don't need those. We don't need any hidden gotchas. I'm I'm pretty happy with how this turns out. And one of the things that's one of the things that's at least important to me is that it's easy to replicate. You don't want to paint a vehicle and be really happy with it, and next time you paint the same vehicle, it looks like a totally different person did it. I always find that, kind of disturbing. Yeah, but too many people put up with things they shouldn't put up with in their hobby. People that like to bend the rules. I'm telling you, I'm not putting up with that shit anymore. And I don't have a history of having to put up with that stuff either. I don't play with Mitch only because it's not on a convenient night of the week for me. And it's just not worth it. Not that he's not a gentleman. It has nothing to do with that. I have an extremely high honor code when it comes to playing games. And I expect the other person to do as well. You know? So, I bought the Tamiya black panel liner. It's right here. I must have had a brain fart and didn't realize it was enamel. So I took a whiff of it and I go, I'm not going to mess with this. So I haven't messed with it yet. I don't think I ever will. And I love Tamiya products. They're the best models. I don't do 1/35th scale, but they're the best models. Their glue is the best. Their weld cement. I'm a big fan. I just don't want to coat this entire thing in some kind of acrylic thing to get this thing, and it stinks. It's toxic. Yeah, I guess maybe one time I try it. And I hope I hate it because then I have to redo everything. But I heard some people swear by it, so I've never used it. I've never used it. Yeah, it's not that it smells. See, here's the thing. I discovered acrylics about 1987, maybe even 86. And then it was like Poly S, Games Workshop Mark 1, Citadel Mark 1. Wasn't no Games Workshop. Nobody called it Games Workshop. Citadel, Poly S, Tamiya. Those were the three. And they were water cleanup. Like, you could clean your brushes. So I learned painting that kind of stuff. So it's unusual for me to have paint that Tamiya has a little bit of a smell, but it was always a fun alcoholic smell. Like, it didn't smell bad. Okay? This stuff smells technically bad, but it's what it should smell like. You're melting plastic, so I also have this stuff by the people in California, Microscale. I think it's Microscale, and they make one that smells like orange. It just smells really nice. Probably it tastes like poison, I would imagine, but it still smells. I'm just not used to having stinky smelling things. I'm not used to somebody walking into a room and my room smell bad. Unless I just farted or something. I mean, it just doesn't have it's just not something that goes hand in hand. So the only time I ever would have toxic smells would be if I was going to clear coat in the garage with Model Master. Well, he discontinued Model Master, and the Model Master was just like this. It had a smell that wasn't too bad, and you just use it in an open area, and it's okay, right? You don't get high off of it. Your head doesn't spin. If you want to trip on something, that's what tequila's for. You don't need to be huffing paint and stuff like that. So, but when Rust-Oleum bought Model Master a few years ago, they discontinued all of the high quality stuff. And I had to go to another source to find who was going to make these things for me. And the Krylons and everything else are just extremely toxic smelling, poor quality, and even though they're much more affordable than Model Master ever was, they come in this huge can that I can't seem to get all of it out because it clogs up the nozzle by the time I'm done. I don't care if you hold it upside down and blow it out. I've just never had any good luck with them. And I kept getting these looks of, I spray in the garage with the garage open towards it, and my wife would be like, "What are you doing in here?" So it was this toxic smell that even a bystander was wondering, why did this turn into such a bad thing? And I'm like, this is just horrible. So let me buy an airbrush to do that. So that's how the airbrush got in the mix. It wasn't to do camouflage, because I could do camouflage without an airbrush, but airbrush makes it easier to do some of those things. But anyhow, so that's the whole story, man. And I'm not one of those people that want to keep stuff to myself. So, I'm not going to tell anybody my secrets so people think I'm some kind of god. No, they're going to think you're a fucking dick. Like, I'm inspired by things other people do, and I ask questions. So, there's things I encounter that I think are amazing, and I don't want to keep that stuff to myself. I want to share it with you guys. Just like I saw one article. This is the most basic thing that is woo! That's why you wear a black shirt. That is camouflage for fat people. Well-rounded people. You can use the back side of this X-Acto knife to take down panel lines. So if you got this panel line on a plastic model that's like round, instead of, doing it like this and putting a flat spot in it, just use the back side and go around it. I'm like, that's fucking brilliant. And it's so simple, Vallejo is... covers really, really well. So around 2002, I decided to go on eBay and sell all of the stuff I haven't touched in 20 years. My 1/2400 scale ships, my Battletech miniatures, all that stuff. And instead of just pocketing that money, I decided to go to Brookhurst Hobbies, because they were the ones at the time that had them all, and order all these. Order the whole shebang of them. You don't need this many colors, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to put back in, I'll get every green. And, most of these I haven't used. Now, some of the browns, they get used all the time, but the greens, what the hell, how many military greens do you need? Well, I got them all now. And that's the only reason I have that many. Because this was great to be able to put like one drop in there. So it was, back then it was like, this was extraordinary that they had that eyedropper, because Army Painter hadn't come around to do the same thing. And I'm glad that other people do it, so it's not a monopoly on an eyedropper. So monopolies are always bad. They're bad for the consumer. Always bad for the consumer. Brookhurst used to be my favorite. They just stopped carrying everything. We used to say Brookhurst you'd get things from Brookhurst before you ordered them, because they were on California time and we're on the East Coast. So you'd order something on Monday morning, and you'd have it by Thursday. It was crazy. 4 a.m. over here is a time for bed. Tomorrow is a time for washing some basing, and this batch is done. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming by, man. It goes both ways. I'm glad you guys appreciate the entertainment, and you guys help me by interacting with me. It's like, I'm not interested in doing a Patreon or none of that nonsense. Just come in here and let's talk hobby. That's it. You know, um, that's it. It's not, and you don't have to say stuff all the time. Just make me know you're there, so I'm not just talking to myself. Well, if I talk to myself, I just end up bringing up stuff that's interesting to me, which may not be what's what you guys want. So I got used to a long time ago. I used to paint with my original Mitch. His name was Jeff. His name still is Jeff. He's not like he's deceased or anything, but he no longer lives anywhere near me. And he would come over on. This is in the early to mid '90s. He would come over on Wednesday nights. I lived alone at the time. I had a 3-bedroom condo. One of the bedrooms was the painting room, and he left his stuff there to paint. And we had one of these type of lights. It wasn't an art light, and he'd leave all his paints there, and we would chit chat while we painted. So I got used to it being a social activity. Now, I was a notoriously slow painter, and still kind of am. But I'm doing a pretty good job of staying on track and getting things accomplished, mostly due to having streams like this. Because if I don't have a stream, I'm thinking about other stuff, and I'll have a shiny moment, and next thing I know, I'm looking up things on the internet, and I don't go back to painting. And the whole point of sitting down to paint is to paint. So it helps me tremendously to do these streams, live streams, even if nobody watches them, which some of you guys do, you know. But, they're totally unedited. So, if I stab myself with the X-Acto knife, you'll see it. Luckily, I don't know if that's happened more than once, and it was very, very small. When I make mistakes, you'll see me make mistakes. This isn't one of these, nothing ever goes wrong type shows, I don't care, I'm human, and I've had to solve a lot of things because of mistakes that I make. They're nothing, none are major mistakes. They're just, shit happens. So I think it helps people realize that, hey, there's another human doing this kind of stuff too. I don't have to, I don't have to watch this super edited video where everything is just wonderful and nothing ever goes sideways. But, if you want something succinct, if you want a 5-hour game paint session condensed down to 5 minutes, or the new thing now where things aren't even spoken by a person. It's all AI, and they almost interrupt themselves, to the point where it's like, this is a video about the paints I use. The paints I use are red, green, and yellow. And the yellow, and it's like, dude, take a pause between everything. It's like, why does everything have to be rushed all the time? Don't you realize that some of us come and do this hobby so that we're not rushed, so that we're not interrupted? There's enough rushings and interruptions throughout the regular day. I do this to get away from that, It's about an hour drive from you. Oh, you're over there on the land of fruits and nuts. Which one are you, a fruit or a nut? I like fruits better because they're not as drying. California stand. They used to import everything that we liked. MMS, Cromwell. Of course, I'm just talking about 20 millimeter stuff. MMS, Cromwell, Millicast, had all the Vallejo stuff. They were the shit, man. In the early 90s and the mid 90s. Hey, Neil, man. Welcome back. Yeah, we did a lot of business with them. But then my last couple of interactions with them were something along the lines of, I want to know if you have this in stock, because you want to order 8 or 9 things, and if you don't get them all in, it doesn't do you any good for whatever project. Well, I don't know. I said, well, can you check? No. Okay, well, you didn't get a sale. And eventually I don't think that was the owner. I think they had people in there that just didn't give a shit. I think with the advent of people surfing on the internet while you're working, people's interest in doing a good job at the workplace just goes to shit. You know? They don't realize that, hey, you know, if you want your day to go by really quick while you're at work, like hustle and help people out and, you know, your day will fly by, right? Nope. I'm a native. Wait. I'm a native. Way. Score those types got here. Oh, way before those types got here. Oh, okay. I make fun of everybody, so you should know that by now. There's a lot of things I wouldn't like about California, but I bet I would like the weather. I couldn't. I couldn't deal with the earthquakes. I just couldn't deal with the earthquakes. I don't want to fall in a hole or have something cave in on me. I got too many things that take too long to paint to have to start over. But the weather here sucks. Except wintertime. Or unless you're at the beach, then it's okay. So, let me tell you why the weather here sucks. Perfect example. Today. I went outside one time at work for like 10 minutes. And it was drizzling. And when I went to work, I had a clean shirt on. And it was drizzling. No big deal, water, right? You know. But there's so much humidity here that you come in and you smell like sour. Like for just a little bit of a drizzle. There's like a stank out there. Even when it's cold. Because there'll be days when it's like 30 something degrees in this part of Florida, right? Which is like heavenly, right? It's humid, so I like the humidity because you're not like drying or dying of thirst. But it just comes with stink. I don't know whether it's the humidity or the humidity with it. We're in a high pollen area. Not all the time, but certain parts of the year. I don't know what's those two things, but you just get out and you fucking stink. You know, like a little kid that's been playing around on a lawn. And it goes away, but it's just like freaking annoying. Got some 1/72nd car cop Germans for control point miniatures after seeing your stuff. Was doing 28, but always get drawn back to 1/72nd 20 millimeter. You bastard. Now I gotta look up that stuff. Control point. That doesn't sound familiar. Control point. Well, good. I'm glad I had a positive influence on you. Control point miniatures. That's checkpoint. Did I write it wrong? Control point miniatures. Checkpoint miniatures. You sure they're called control point? I can't find them on the internet. Here's checkpoint. I love to surf. Oh man, I love to surf. You know, 20 millimeter, 1/72nd, 1/76 was the first stuff I ever had. We played with the little Airfix guys, which here in the States they were just called MPC. I think at that point they had the selling rights for all this stuff, and here in the United States. Actually, you go to Hobby Lobby, there's still some kits that are MPC. I'm like, how'd you get those? They must be still manufactured, and they just have a bunch of extra boxes or something like that. Checkpoint miniatures. All right, checkpoint miniatures. Brain fart. That's okay. I have those all the time. shop. Okay. First of all, let's go to desktop site. Okay. 20. They have 396. Oh my gosh. I know what my homework assignment's going to be today. TQD castings. You know, TQDs look weird. They look a bit. Let me make sure this is the right one. Or I'm thinking of CP. Maybe I'm thinking of CP. One of those two has guys that look like they've been starving for a while. Which I guess is probably more realistic, but checkpoint measures, they make civilians? Oh, you dirty man. You're going to get me in trouble. Soviet era female peasants. Oh, could have fun with those ladies. Hey, I got a Russian tanker with flowers. Look at those. Oh man, some things just write themselves. Of course, where do they come from? The UK, the land of toys. They're not very hot, but Arabs carrying stuff. Armed German scientists. Interesting. Female civilians and a boy. Yeah. They cater to all types. Okay. Man, thank you for that. Now here's a set I won't get. Kevin's Heroes Tank Crew. I'll watch that movie again when it comes on, but I did not like it. And I saw it a long time ago. I saw it 30 years ago. Yeah, I probably saw it 30 years ago. I didn't like it. And I like all the actors. So it had nothing to do with that. Just don't like that hippie vibe in World War II. It just doesn't go for me. Well, I know you give me some stuff to surf, Neil, man. That's awesome. Well, 20 mil is great because you can do Matchbox vehicles and get away with it. And they're not exactly the same size, but they're close enough. You know, a lot of the figures are 1/72nd, but they're really not. They're kind of big. You know, they're kind of big or bulky or heroic or something. So they'll work with a bigger vehicle. So I actually prefer 1/72nd scale vehicles with the 20 mil figures more than 1/76 because they're heftier looking. But I'll use them both. But I actually went to a flea market, a hobby store that had a storefront in a flea market, and they had models. They had 1/72nd scale stuff. I couldn't believe it. But they were like $20 a piece, so I didn't buy any. Because first of all, I don't need any. But they had, I don't know, 12 different Hasegawa kits. A couple of Zvezdas. A couple of UMs. I mean, you can't even get any model kits. Hardly anywhere. And then they had like vehicles. Like, wow. But I'm like, I got plenty of stuff to work on. $20 doesn't say, hey, buy me. If they were 10, yeah, I probably would have bought them all. But 20, it just doesn't. Holy shit, this looks good. And we don't have the log painted yet. This is why I do this hobby, because I'm like, fuck yeah, it's empowering. I should have taken a picture beforehand. Trust the process. And we still need to do some more tinkering with it. Let me show you guys a picture. But the airbrush, man, the airbrush is a totally different animal. But the main thing about the airbrush is, if I can tell you one thing about airbrushing is, don't make any fucking plans. Don't be like, hey, I'm gonna do this, have this idea, like, I'm gonna paint these Russian tanks. I got about 35 minutes to kill. That should be enough time. No, it isn't. Something's gonna go sideways. You know? Well, now I can get, holy smokes. God, this looks sexy. And we got the little saw to paint. I think there's no sheen on there if I angle it that way. Wow. I did take a picture of one of them without the black lining. All right, so let me do the same thing, and I'll send them to you back to back. I'll show you what the black lining does. Line washing. That's what I should call it. Get up here, you slacker. Okay. Okay. I'm going to delete this picture I just took. I'm going to move it to the trash. So that way I have these two side by side. It doesn't capture. It looks a lot more different in person. So you've got this. That's without the black lining. That's with. It's pretty noticeable. And it's even more noticeable the farther you get away from it. You know, you can make things pop that don't normally pop. Like, I just noticed something I missed. This one has almost like a little round handle, right, in this hatch cover. So, put a little round stain, little round shadow around it. And it's always going to dry a little bit more subtle than it's on there. All these have them. Yeah. But here's the difference. I don't know, you can probably see it. You see the difference in color between these two? Exact same method on both. This is the Vallejo green. This is the Ammo Mig green. And I actually like this one better, but I actually like that they're different. You know, exact same vehicle. You know, I have 4 tanks that I'm in the process of painting right now. A King Tiger, Panzer III, and T-34. It's getting ridiculous because I need to stay focused on one and finish. Work has been too busy lately. I understand. Dude, I understand. I understand. PSC vehicles are a perfect fit with these guys. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I love PSC. Now, their Panzer IIIs are weird. There's something going on there. Let's see. Panzer III. Remember, these are 176, so they're a smidge small. Where's my Panzer IIIs, the M's and stuff? And they both have the same problem. The turrets are weird. You've got turrets that are just too fat. They're just a smidge too fat. Wait, is this the UM one? Yes, bad example. I have a UMH. Sorry, H. Here's the. Now the pens are gray. The colors I use for the pens are gray. That's something totally different. That's a video in and of itself. And this doesn't have black lining yet. Now when it does, it's gonna look. But their turrets are kind of fat. They're a little too. The turret has a drop in it. It's almost flat when it's in front of the cupola, and then it's got a slight angle, maybe a 5-degree, 10-degree angle, something like that. These I think have too much of an angle, so they just look weird. But I love PSC stuff, so it's not. I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying that they look kind of weird. They almost look like they got too much of a step in it. But yeah, I'm gonna have to come back in black. Now this one's got black lining on it. This one does, but this one does not. See, I want to do black lining so all these little rivets on the front of it stand out, so you can see it at a distance, because that's kind of cool, you know. But this one doesn't. But it will. It's something that's easy enough to go back and do it. But yeah, this is my pens are 3s for Barbarossa. But I had one thing, speaking of Brookhurst, a long time ago, and I didn't dare touch it. I was scared to mess with it. I didn't have the skills to paint it, and I didn't have the skills to paint it. And when I finally got around to painting it, it was this Cromwell Tiger 1. It is easily the most beautiful model I have of all of them. It is a work of art. And I'm not saying what I did with it. I'm just saying the actual model is a work of art. And let me take a picture of it. And you need to use all of these skills to get all that detail to pop out. To do it justice. It's absolutely gorgeous. Only thing I do is put the autocorrect, because this kicks so much freaking light back at it and reflects that it just doesn't look like the real vehicle. But I mean, it's got all kinds of little things that are damaged. All those little extra armor on the side is damaged. It's absolutely gorgeous vehicle. Now, my favorite thing I've ever painted, and I'm not doing this because it's German, it's just amazing how it turned out. Some things just is this Jagdtiger. This all of it is done exactly the same way I do all of this stuff. And it's a very striking pattern, so that helps. So take a look at this, because what I explained is easy to do. It's really easy to do. Look how beautiful this thing is. But let's zoom in and take a look at this. Look at that. That's better than some 1/35th scale stuff. I'm just amazed every time I look at it. So I'm painting without contacts in, so it's got to look good up close, because if it doesn't, it looks like shit to me because I got my contacts out, you know? So I love this thing. You know, it's also a very good model. It's a very, very, very good model. It's a trumpeter. And they don't have the commander's hat you can make open, because this would be a candidate to have some little Nazi stooge be looking out, you know, like, can't put a Nazi stooge in there, not in this one. But, yeah, it's simple. Did I use Vallejo on my Panzer threes? I did. So the thing with Panzer Gray vehicles is, when I was doing 1/35th scale modeling many years ago, we just used the Tamiya one and we're done with it. Now there's like, does it have a blue wash? Or have it, you know, I'm like, what's this blue tint that everything has? Well, it looks better. I actually like it. So I had to come up with my own method of doing it. And it's not using one of those blue washes, because the problem with doing all those washes is that they're expensive, and you have to pay shipping on all of them, and you have to wait for them to dry. So I don't like the idea of doing a lot of extra washes, because I like doing one vehicle and finishing it. I don't like doing a bunch of different vehicles and finish them all, you know, at different times, even though I end up having to do that. Let's put the Tigger back. So I had to come up with my own method of how to do that, and I don't think I watched a video. I think that one I came up on my own, and where's this Panzer III again? So I can show you the richness of this color. How well this, I mean, this, and it didn't have black lining on it yet, and it's like exactly what I wanted. And then I'll tell you how I did it. And it's easy. Some vehicles reflect so much light that they're difficult to deal with. So this is what it is unaltered. So it's basically German gray, which is the equivalent of the overall one. Black. Dry brushed it with German gray. This was painted before I had an airbrush. Brown wash. So now you got some subtleness. German gray again. And then instead of lightening it with this just yet, I used Luftwaffe uniform, which has a little bit of blue, and I mixed some of that in with the Panzer Gray and lightened it up. And then at the very end, I added a little bit of this. And then I did the two-color dry brush. And it turned out exactly how I wanted it, how I envisioned it looking like. And I'm really happy with it. So, but that adding a blue thing is just, you know, that wasn't a thing in the 90s. At some point, somebody decided, and you know, people make this like panel line wash and stuff. That was an interesting flicker. One of these flickers, like I said, if I lose this feed, it's because we lost power. So, and it's very easy to replicate, because that's important. You don't want to be like, oh, this looks great, and the next one you do, oh, it looks like crap. Why? Why wasn't I able to be consistent? Oh, I found some spots. So, but what I really like to do, because the German vehicles paint themselves, right? I like painting Americans and Russians, because, yes, they're boring, but you don't have to make them boring. And like, oh, it's just a Sherman. Yeah, exactly. So respect it. Give it some personality. Give this T-34 some personality. So, true story. Call of Duty, right? Call of Duty World at War. I haven't played it in years, but one of the scenarios you can do is you run around playing a T-34-45 crew with other T-34-45 crews, and you're blowing up shit. And the T-34 you get is a flamethrower. Just happens to be, which I decided one of these is a flamethrower as well. But when you point your reticle at other T-34s, tells you what the names of they are. So Kirov plant, whatever, all this kind of stuff. And one of them was tiger tamer. So I wanted to put tiger tamer on the side of my tank. So I looked it up with Google Translate it, sent it to this guy that I know that speaks Russian. Said, hey, I want to do tiger tamer. Is this correct? So yeah, that's good. Then I sent him that I can read it right off of it. So my daughter's roommate is staying with us for the storm, and she speaks this, and I showed her in there, and she says, one of your tanks has tiger written on it. I'm like, oh my god, you can freaking read Russian? So she went and read all my tanks, and it all made sense to her, so I know I'm on the right track. Yeah, just an opportunity to learn something else, And the thing about painting your own tanks is, let's say you find the decal you want. You got to pay for it, and you got to pay the shipping for it. So, maybe one vendor has one of the decals and something from else. You got to wait for them to come in. Meanwhile, your project isn't moving forward because you're waiting for the decals to come. It's like, fuck it, just paint them, So, we have a log to paint here. And we also have a saw here. So let's go ahead and paint the saw. That's black. The log is damn near black. Yeah, and the T-3045 is actually a really attractive vehicle. I think it is. Actually, most tanks are attractive. Most World War II tanks are. There's the exception of the ones that aren't. There's a few that aren't, but I'd say most of them are attractive. Because there's some that are attractive, and there's some that are like, they're ugly, but they look good even though they're ugly. Something like a Grant, like an M3 Grant. It's not an attractive vehicle, but it's kind of cool looking. So it's like, like the Lee's much uglier than a Grant. But, a Sherman is not necessarily a very attractive vehicle. But I like them. Okay, so that's done. And was there one that was missing something else? No, that one was missing that. Let's go ahead and paint the MG. Yeah, and a lot of these were missing things. I mean, I got these from an estate sale. I mean, I literally picked up like 50 T-34s for like $120 or something like that. And I still have a shitload. This is all the T-3045s I have from that sale. So they, you don't feel bad about like, well, you got 2 King Tigers out there because I got 8 T-3045s. I like them apples, I got 3 JS2s, somebody's got to fight them, you got to have something out there. I got a Yag Tiger, man. We need a lot of Russian shit to fight them. All right, let's paint this log. SS Camo Black. It's not called that anymore. German Camouflage Black Brown. Yeah, we haven't painted any SS guys yet either. And again, I didn't think I had the skill set to do it, to pull it off. Well, now I do, and there's lots of people that have made videos on how to paint them. So I'll watch some of them and probably do my own interpretation of them. But at least that gets you pointed in the right direction, But right now I'm building stuff. Playing the game is going to be like a role-playing game. Everybody's on one side. I don't think I'm going to let people play the SS. I think the SS, you got to kill those bastards. I'm not a big fan of the SS. I mean, they have cool uniforms and everything else. And they got that stupid Nazi freaking rank system. Everybody's a Führer. Even the guy that cleans a toilet. The toilet brush Führer. But they look cool. There's no doubt about that. But toilet brush Führer. They make an Osprey book on that, toilet brushes of the Third Reich. Like, I'm not a very sensitive person when it comes to that kind of stuff at all. But it is pretty weird when there's all this German-centric stuff and it isn't the equivalent for everybody else. Like, I like Panthers and King Tigers and Mark IIIs and 4s as much as anybody else, but we need info on the stuff that they fought too, because not like one side can't be the only one that's interesting. So I get a little perturbed sometimes when that stuff's not available for other people. Like, you go to the bookstore and they've got a couple of books on, I forget who the heck the name of but they've been around forever. It's not Stackpole, but it's somebody that's well known. And they make, like, you know, the Panzer Aces, and then the Panzer Aces 2, and then Infantry Aces. That's also Germans. Like, okay, what about the other people? You know, what about the Allied stuff? They don't have that? Just seems a little too wereaboo-ish. You know? It's just annoying. Ooh, little too much too soon. I used to think you'd see these T-34 tanks and always have these logs on it. Like, well, that's just in case they needed to, like, cross something, right? Nope, it's for armor. And you think, well, how much good can one log do on you? Well, it's probably better to have it than not. Skytrex logs. Skytrex slash Hinchcliffe logs. I missed one here. Oh, it's 10:30. Well, I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me, because I was able to finish these two vehicles for the most part. I still got little packs and stuff that I want to put on them, but for the most part, oh, I'm still not done. What's wrong with me? We got to add the metal to this, and we got to add the wood to the other ones. Which ones did we do together? These two? Okay. So let's get the wood on. Flat earth will work. And a wee bit of white. gotta mix this one good or it turns like purple. It's like metallic purple in there. Comrade machine gun. We still have the exhaust to do on them. Damn it. Things just always keep appearing. I still have black, I do not. Oh yeah, I do. Need a good source for decals. Can you recommend any I prefer? Well, my first choice, what scale are you doing? And if it's not 1/72nd, I'm not going to be very helpful, unfortunately. My favorite decals, the ones that behave the best, the ones that are absolutely the best quality ones I've ever ordered, are micro scale. They are easily the best ones. Easily the best ones. They're thin, they're individually cut. So in other words, it's not like it's one big sheet and you have to cut them out yourself. I can cut them really close myself. The problem is you run the risk of cutting them or, not having a good... I just like them individually cut out, not all one on one big sheet. And they just work the best. Never get Petting House. Never get Petting House. I've gotten the Alaran ones. The Alaran ones are good. They're all one sheet, but they're good. They're thin. They're very good, actually. Do not get Petting House, and they're all over the place. I've never ordered. I've never tried the Star ones. I've never tried the. Hold on a second. Let me grab. Let me see what I got. Hold on 1 second. Okay, sorry, I was getting called away. Um, what particular nationality are you looking for in 172nd? Because it makes a difference what I recommend. But do not get Petting House. Never. And it's a shame because they have a lot of really cool stuff out there. You go on eBay and they're all over the place and they're relatively inexpensive and they're made in Germany. Like, oh, something is well, they're a piece of crap, unfortunately. And I ordered some American Stars because I mean I go through American Stars like crazy. Now, Microscale does have one bad thing about them is they sometimes you get a lot of decals that I don't think are very useful. Um, what do I have out here? The Russian ones. Yeah, I got some Russian ones. They got some stuff that's just you get it and it's not very useful at all. Here's the Russian set. And they're made in the U.S. I don't know if that's important to you, but. And here's the second part of them because I actually cut them, and the stuff I needed was in the middle. That's why they're in two different pieces. But this is one sheet. I think it's something like this. So the numbers are cool. You've got like these Polish markings. Well, I'm not going to do Polish vehicles that are in the service of the Soviets. Like they're not going to liberate Poland and bring communism. I'm not falling for that shit. So I don't do that. If I'm gonna do Poles, I'm gonna do 39 Poles, right? I'm not gonna do ones that are Soviet lapdog Poles. I haven't used any of these slogans because I could just paint them myself. There's a lot of these red stars that have the hammer and sickle inside of them, which are useless for World War II, but you could just put them on there and just paint red over the center of them, and they work fine. So. That's useful, although a lot of the Soviet vehicles don't have stars. Stars are kind of the exception. The U.S. The German one. The German has a lot of things that aren't useful. Oh, these are really good. Skytrex. Skytrex are really good decals. You get a lot of these German crosses or whatever. I got some serial numbers by this company. This was difficult to get. Called, I need really small white decals. And Modelblau, I think is what it is. Something like that. These numbers are microscale. They're individual decals, which is how I'm always used to decals being. There's a lot of people that make decals that are all on one sheet. Yeah, Skytrex makes really good stuff. Yeah, Skytrex. They're on. But what ends up happening is some of these little crosses, I need to put them in places where they don't fit. Like on the side of a Panzer III, the cross normally goes on the little superstructure. And the superstructure is really small. It's usually smaller than this, so I've had to hand paint a few of them, but it's not that big of a deal. And then if you get some of these, like these Polish crosses, which I find are useless, okay, because I'm not going to do Polish vehicles, and I'm not going to do any German vehicles with just the white crosses, like if it was Switzerland invading you. But you can just take the center and paint them black. And then bam, you got more. So, I really like the microscale. I think they're made in California. You should get a discount. I think they're made in California. Get them really quick. Fountain Valley. Go visit them. Knock on their door. Wer ist mein Decals? Yeah. Anyhow. Wow. Just what a slew of tanks. Oh, and I got one more T-34, another obstinate one that did not get black line. Another T-34-85. Yeah, so I got a ton more T-34s. They'll have to be black line. I got about another 20 that are finished. Yeah, this one here. not black lined. Totally usable, but the hatches get lost. Like, you know, there's detail there and you can't see it because it doesn't pop. So we'll bring that one up to speed as well. But anyhow, thanks for stopping by, folks. I appreciate it. And we will catch you guys. I guess we had a successful session. We didn't lose